Kakazu. The story of Kakazu. Kakazu is an older character, believe it or not. He lived back during the times of Hashirama Senju. This man loved money more than anything. He loved it so much that he decided to live for money and live longer to make more money. He had an exchange with Hashirama Senju. Now, we don't know how that bout went, but I believe that Hashirama did fuck his ass up pretty good. Because how did, Kakazu get to be so stitched up and everything else? He learned that jutsu right after that. The heart jutsu, where he can take somebody's heart, kill them, take their heart, and also, once it's implanted in his body, he can, incorporate their jutsu. So if they were a fire style user, he can use the fire style. If they were a lightning style user, he could use their jutsus. You know, these bodies, with the hearts, but they all go back inside of him. And he could hold up to like 6 hearts, I think. But he was running around like this for a while. This guy was living for money, hunting people down, killing people, recouping his hearts, when they, ended up getting taken from him. But then one day the Akatsuki appeared and was like, hey, you're a vagrant, you're running around fucking around with people. Now, do you want to join us? You'll have protection with other members, and you can continue to make money. But I want to use you to help our cause out. Instead of just running around like this, you can still make money. But we want you to help us catch tail beasts, and you're an immortal one. So you will join us. We ain't asking you, we're actually, making you join us. He couldn't fight them, he had to join. So it was like, damn, now that I've joined, who's my partner? Now they're like, okay, we'll figure this out. I heard of another man by the name of Hedon. He runs around and kills people too. This guy's immortal, but in a different way. Kind of a truly immortal kind of guy. Not relying on hearts to survive with his own body. It's just a certain ritual and a jutsu he uses. They found this guy. Kakazu and Itachi and Conan attacked this guy. And sure enough, he was still alive to, sing and gloat and all that extra shit. But then they were like, we can easily turn shit against him. We can cut his body parts off and scatter them to the 4 winds. They even cut his head off. And then he was like, hey, I can't put my fucking head back on. But then he was like, yo, I got you. Now you have to be my partner. We have to run around and catch these things called tail beasts. These things are not fucking weak, so I really need you to not fuck around. He's like, oh, well, I won't fuck around. I like to kill stuff. And they ended up being the immortal duo and the Akatsuki together. They hunted down the 7 tails, Fu, together. And then they hunted down Yukicho Need, the 2 tails. She was a part of the Cloud Village. They, cornered her in the, sewers, and they defeated her. Then Kakazu was like, I know of a man from the Guardian Shinobi 12 called Chiriku. This guy is worth a lot of fucking money. Let's go grab this money real quick on the side, and then the boss can call us when we need to seal away the 2 tails. He was like, all right, I'll help you catch this money. He was like, damn, you're worth a lot of money. I don't give a fuck about this shit or anything. We're catching you. He ended up catching Chiriku with the help of Hidan. And then he took him into the, collection office, the head office. And then he was like, Mr. Kakazu, you're back again. You keep bringing us people who are wanted and other things. You love your money. He's like, yes, I do. He's like, man, I have to count every fucking time I'm here. I have to make sure you don't fucking, play games with me. Because I put my life on the line to get this guy. He was sitting down counting his money as Hidan was fighting the people outside. Now, they did manage to cut his head off. And they were like, he was like, oh, fuck, my stupid-ass partner got his head cut off. Now let me, sew his head back on. He was counting his money still, but then he was like, I'm done counting my money. I can, stop this guy named Shikamaru. And then, Asuma died. But then they got the fuck out of there, sealed the 2 tails, and then they're like, let's go find the 9 tails and probably more money. because this is Kakazu talking. He's like, and probably more fun. Um, they ended up getting cornered by Team 8 or Team 10 or Team Asuma with the help of Kakashi. Right, Kakashi was there. Mm, I don't know why that's going on, but Kakazu, Kakazu, right? So then after this shit happened, right? Kakazu got struck from behind by Kakashi. They got a blood sample from him. Shikamaru took it, but then he was fighting against all of them. He spawned out all of his hearts, and each heart had different attribute. I think there was 4 of them at this point. Lightning, water, fire, and wind. Lightning, fire, water, and wind. And he was fighting against Kakashi. He even hit Kakashi and was like, "Yo, I'm gonna take your fucking heart out because your underling Shikamaru ended up, killing my partner probably or something. He damaged one of my fucking hearts. I need to like restore and get more hearts. I have to restock essentially. So I'll kill all of you guys and then take your hearts and use them to keep my existence, fueled. Then Naruto ended up showing up. Naruto shows up and he's like, "Yo, you need my help." And they're like, "Yeah." Kakazu was running around, hopping around and shit, and then Naruto was like, "I got the Rasen Shuriken right here." He ended up dodging the first one. Yamato was there too. They were all like jumping on and shit. So they're like, "Oh fuck." Um, but after that, Naruto ended up making another one. He knew he was fucking serious as the Watcher because he had the Nine Tails eyes. He had the you know blue eyes still, but he had Nine Tails chakra in it. That's how you knew he was gonna like beat Kakazu. He did. He hit him with the Rasen Shuriken, defeating him almost. He had his heart left. Kakazu still had his heart in his chest. Then Kakashi went up on him and killed him. But that ain't the end of Kakazu's story because he got recouped by um, none other than Kabuto during the Fourth Great Shinobi War. He was fighting on the beachfront, and guess what? He's like, "Hey, remember me?" He's like, "Yeah, and he got boxed in by them though. By that point, they weren't worried about Kakazu. They're like, "We know how this guy's jutsu works. Inochika showed him, and he got boxed in." Um, as a reanimated zombie, he wasn't really effective during the war. He could have got somebody else. That's all I'm saying. But Kakazu was one of the. Mm, he was in the middle of the Akatsuki. He definitely wasn't the weakest, but he was not one of the top tiers. Um, but that is the story of Kakazu as told by Darius the Green Angel. Be cool, Corner on the Corner.